The highly anticipated British crime thriller Department Q bursts onto screens with a premiere episode that establishes both its gritty atmosphere and the deeply flawed protagonist at its center. Adapted from Jussi Adler-Olsen's acclaimed novels, the series introduces us to Detective Inspector Carl Morck, a once brilliant detective now physically and emotionally scarred, following a traumatic shooting that left his colleague dead and another paralyzed. The series wastes no time establishing its bleak tone as Carl returns to work only to discover he's being exiled to a damp basement to head up a newly formed cold case division, a thinly veiled demotion disguised as an opportunity. The episode opens with a haunting flashback to the incident that changed Carl's life forever. At a routine wellness check in Leith Park, Carl and his colleagues, Hardy and Anderson, discover a deceased man with a knife protruding from his head. What begins as a standard crime scene investigation quickly devolves into chaos when unseen assailants open fire, killing Anderson and leaving Hardy paralyzed. Carl, shot in the face, survives but is clearly haunted by the memory. This traumatic sequence, revisited throughout the episode as fragmented flashbacks, establishes the psychological foundation for Carl's character, a man consumed by survivor's guilt and rage, yet somehow still driven to continue as a detective. Upon his return to work, Carl faces the cold reality that the investigation into his shooting has stalled. His former colleague Wilson reveals that their only witness, a woman named Caroline who was walking with her baby through Leith Park, has recanted her statement about seeing a man enter the flat shortly before the shooting. When Carl confronts the evidence room, he discovers something everyone else missed: a McDonald's cup and bag near the suspect's car, suggesting the shooter had stayed at the scene, watching to see who would respond to the call. This small detail showcases Carl's extraordinary observational skills, even as he's being pushed aside professionally. The central plot device of the premiere is Carl's reassignment to the newly created Department Q, dedicated to reviewing cold cases. His boss, Detective Superintendent Moira, presents this as a prestigious opportunity with full discretion over all of it, cases and budget, but the reality quickly becomes clear when Carl is led to the building's basement, a damp, dimly lit space that was never meant to be an office. This physical descent mirrors Carl's professional fall from grace and establishes the series' metaphorical underworld where forgotten crimes and damaged detectives exist together. In what initially appears to be another insult, Carl is assigned an assistant, Akram Salim, who claims to have some unspecified police experience in Syria. Their initial interaction is tense and dismissive, with Carl ordering him to mop floors and fetch equipment, clearly viewing him as little more than a janitor. However, when Carl discovers Akram has taken the initiative to read through the cold case files, a reluctant professional respect begins to form. Since you can actually read a file and clearly a fuck site better than you mop the floor, you could sort them out for me, Carl grudgingly admits, beginning what promises to be an unconventional partnership. The premiere cleverly interweaves Carl's story with that of Merritt Lingard, a prosecutor who's just lost a high-profile murder case against Graham Finch, a man accused of killing his wife. The not-proven verdict, a uniquely Scottish legal outcome, leaves Merritt visibly shaken. We later discover she's caring for her brother William, who appears to have some form of cognitive disability or mental illness. Their relationship is complex and occasionally volatile, culminating in a disturbing scene where William becomes violent after Merritt disposes of what appears to be a boat model. This secondary storyline seems poised to intersect with Carl's investigations in future episodes, particularly when the episode ends with Merritt receiving an ominous distorted voice message, "Morning, Merritt." The emotional core of the episode lies in Carl's relationship with his paralyzed colleague Hardy, whom he visits regularly. Their scenes together reveal the depth of Carl's guilt and his desperate need for purpose. "Look at us, fuck sake," Carl tells the unresponsive Hardy. "You want to kill yourself. I want to kill everyone else. Talk about 1 and 1 equals fucking 0. This raw conversation reveals Carl's suicidal colleague, maybe the only person who truly understands him, creating a poignant dynamic where Carl fights to stay engaged with life partly for Hardy's sake. Carl's psychological state is further explored through his mandatory session with Dr. Irving, a therapist who quickly recognizes Carl's defense mechanisms. When asked about being shot in the face, Carl deflects with dark humor. "If the bees were on fire and flying at your face at twice the speed of sound, you could describe it like that, sure." This exchange establishes Carl's resistance to addressing his trauma, while simultaneously confirming its profound impact on him. Dr. Irving's observation that a computer could just as easily tell you that after the incident in Leith Park, you're gonna have problems interacting with other human beings, serves as both diagnosis and foreshadowing of Carl's difficulties throughout the series. The workplace dynamics established in the premiere provide rich ground for future conflict. Carl's former colleagues whisper about him behind his back, with Detective Clark describing the Leith Park incident as a total fucking cock-up, and suggesting that Morck can't fucking help himself. This establishes Carl as an outsider even within his own department, someone viewed with a mixture of resentment and pity. His confrontation with Detective Logan Bruce, who's taken over the investigation into the shooting, further emphasizes Carl's isolation and his determination to remain involved despite official barriers. As Carl begins reluctantly reviewing the cold cases, his attention is caught by the file of a woman who's been missing for 4 years. When he dismissively tells Akram, she's dead, his assistant confidently responds, I don't think so. This exchange marks the turning point of the episode, as Carl's cynicism collides with Akram's conviction. Though Carl initially calls it a loser case, the final scenes show him examining the file more carefully in the dimly lit basement, suggesting this will become their first investigation together. The episode's visual language contributes significantly to its atmosphere, with the contrast between the sterile, well-lit upper floors of the police station and Department Q's dank basement establishing clear visual metaphors for Carl's professional exile. The recurring water motifs, dripping pipes, puddles on the basement floor, and scenes near Edinburgh's harbors create a persistent sense of decay and submersion, as if Carl is drowning in both his memories and his new circumstances. Sound design plays a crucial role throughout, with the episode using disorienting audio techniques during Carl's flashbacks to the shooting. The normal conversations at the crime scene are suddenly interrupted by dampened gunshots and high-pitched ringing, suggesting both the physical trauma of being shot and the psychological fragmentation of Carl's memories. This technique effectively puts viewers inside Carl's damaged psyche, experiencing his disorientation firsthand. The premiere skillfully establishes the series' central theme, the possibility of redemption through meaningful work. Despite Carl's cynicism and the humiliation of his basement assignment, by the episode's end, there are hints that Department Q might offer him a path back to purpose. His conversation with Hardy suggests that pursuing cold cases could provide both men with a reason to continue. We need to figure something out soon, Carl tells his paralyzed friend. The cold cases represent not just professional challenges, but potential salvation for damaged detectives. The Scottish setting provides more than just atmospheric fog and brooding architecture. It informs the legal framework of the show, as evidenced by the not-proven verdict in Merritt's case, a uniquely Scottish legal outcome that leaves cases unresolved in a way that parallels the cold cases Carl will be investigating. This cultural specificity helps distinguish Department Q from other British crime dramas, while providing thematic resonance with its central concerns of justice delayed and accountability evaded. By the episode's conclusion, the premiere has established Carl Morck as a compelling protagonist whose abrasive exterior masks deep emotional wounds. The basement setting of Department Q serves as both literal workspace and metaphorical purgatory, a place where forgotten crimes and discarded detectives might find redemption together. The introduction of Akram, whose background remains mysterious but whose investigative instincts appear sharp, sets up an intriguing dynamic between the cynical veteran and the eager newcomer. The final scenes leave viewers with multiple threads to follow. Will Carl pursue the case of the missing woman? What is the nature of Merritt's connection to the criminal underworld? What really happened at Leith Park, and will the shooter ever be brought to justice? These questions create a rich foundation for the series to build upon, promising both procedural satisfaction and character-driven depth in the episodes to come. Department Q announces itself as more than just another police procedural in this debut episode. It's a psychological exploration of trauma, redemption, and the human need for purpose, wrapped in the familiar trappings of a crime thriller. With Carl Morck's reluctant descent into the basement serving as both literal plot point and powerful metaphor, the series establishes its central premise. Sometimes the deepest wounds, like the coldest cases, aren't truly closed until someone is willing to reopen them and face whatever darkness might spill out.